right, welcome back everyone for another deep dive. Today, well, we're going to get into something kind of thought-provoking.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's the whole psychology thing behind, market booms and busts.
Okay.
And this idea that maybe, just maybe, our tendency to follow the crowd, to jump on the bandwagon, is actually hardwired into our brains.
That's interesting.
So to get into all of this, we're looking at this article. It's called The Psychology of Booms, Busts, and the Hardwired Nature of Followers.
Hecky.
Right? What we really want to do is kind of figure out, how does human evolution, way back in the day, actually play into the way we behave as investors today?
I'm intrigued.
Hopefully we can unearth some insights, some golden nuggets here to help you, as you're navigating the crazy world of the markets.
Makes sense.
Okay, so, we all know the pattern, right? The markets boom, everyone gets all excited, and suddenly it seems like making money is just easy, it's a piece of cake.
Yeah, yep.
And then, bam, the bust hits and everybody's left holding the bag.
Ugh, the dreaded cycle.
Exactly. And this has been going on forever. As long as we've had markets, this pattern just keeps repeating.
Yep.
So the big question, the million-dollar question is, why haven't we learned? Why do we keep doing this to ourselves?
You would think we'd wise up, right? But, well, you see, it's easy to just assume that all investors, they're rational, they're making calculated decisions.
Right, right.
But the truth is, even the most experienced, the so-called pros, they can still fall prey to this groupthink thing,
Groupthink.
Yeah, like when an investment idea, it starts gaining traction, people start whispering about it, and then it just explodes. It becomes this speculative frenzy.
Oh, I see.
And that's basically how bubbles form. Everyone's just piling on, pushing those valuations way, way up to levels that, well, that just aren't sustainable in the long run.
So you're saying even if an investment thesis, the underlying idea is sound, it makes sense on paper, it can still become dangerous.
Absolutely.
If everyone just accepts it blindly without questioning it.
100%, yeah.
This makes me think of, what was it, the dot-com bubble back in the late 90s?
Oh, classic example.
All those internet companies, valuations through the roof, but some of them weren't even making any actual money.
Hype could be a powerful drug.
It really can. And what about, more recently, we had the whole real estate bubble, early 2000s.
Oh, don't you get me started on that one.
It's these are textbook cases of how, herd mentality, that urge to follow the crowd, can just drive the markets to these extremes.
It's a fascinating phenomenon, really.
It is. And it makes me wonder, have you ever personally felt this kind of fear of missing out?
Oh, sure.
Maybe you bought into a stock just because everyone was talking about it. It was the hot thing. And then, you saw it crash and burn later.
It happens. It's part of the learning process, I guess you could say.
Right. It's those experiences, even though they might be painful, they can actually be really valuable in the long run. They force us to really look at our own biases, to question why we make certain financial decisions.
Got to learn from those mistakes.
Exactly. And this brings us to a really, really interesting point from this article.
Oh.
It says that maybe this whole tendency to just follow the crowd, maybe it's not just something we learn, like some bad habit. It might be something deeper, something rooted in our evolutionary past, way back when we were hunter-gatherers.
Wow, that's going way back.
I know, right? Imagine our ancestors. They're out in the wild trying to survive,
Yeah.
and they decide, hey, I'm going to challenge the leader of the group.
Oh, bad idea.
Right. Back then, that could mean getting kicked out of the group, which was basically a death sentence.
Yeah, you'd be on your own.
So following the leader, even if they were making a mistake, might have actually been the safer option, the way to survive.
So blindly following was actually an evolutionary advantage. That's wild.
It's mind-blowing. And the article, it goes even further. It suggests that leadership itself might be a rarer trait than we think.
Really?
Yeah, and it might even be influenced by genetics, passed down through generations.
That is fascinating. So if leadership is less common and it's passed down, that means, well, most people are probably naturally inclined to follow.
Right.
So it's not necessarily a weakness. It's like this deep-seated instinct, something that's been shaping our social dynamics for millennia.
Okay, so we're saying following is kind of baked into our DNA.
Looks like it.
But then the question is, how do we avoid falling into that trap when it comes to investing? If our brains are wired to follow, how do we break free from that pattern and actually start thinking for ourselves?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think, this is where understanding our history, our evolutionary history, becomes really powerful.
Okay.
Once we realize that we have this hardwired tendency to just follow along, that's when we can start to develop strategies to combat it, to counteract it.
I like that.
And the first step really is just awareness, being conscious of this instinct so we can start making choices that are more deliberate, more informed.
So it's like we need to understand our own psychology and then use that knowledge to our advantage, right?
Precisely.
But knowing something and then actually doing something about it, those are two different things, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So what are some practical things we can do to overcome this deep-seated follower instinct?
Well, luckily, this article we're talking about, it actually outlines 5 really powerful strategies. They can help us break free from that herd mentality and become, more independent investors.
5 strategies. Okay, I'm all ears.
Each one is designed to empower you, to help you make decisions based on critical thinking and really careful analysis, rather than just blindly following the crowd.
I like the sound of that. So what's the first strategy? All right, so you were just about to tell us about these 5 strategies, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. So the first one, foundation, really is critical thinking.
Okay.
It sounds kind of basic, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, when you're in the thick of it, when everyone around you seems to be making money hand over fist,
Right.
it can be really, really tough to step back and question what's going on, to question that narrative that everyone's buying into.
To challenge the hype.
Exactly. But that's exactly what we need to do.
So basically, don't just accept what everyone else is saying.
Nope.
Do your own homework, look for actual evidence.
That's it.
And most importantly, ask why.
Yes. Why is this a good investment? Is this company, is their business model, is it sustainable? What are the risks? Don't just buy into the hype just because it feels good or because everyone else is doing it.
Oh man, this reminds me of that quote, the one by John Maynard Keynes. The market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's like, even if you're right going against the grain, it can be really tough, financially speaking.
For sure.
Which is why, I guess, that second strategy, the historical perspective, that's so crucial, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's about looking back at past market cycles,
Right.
seeing the patterns,
Yeah.
trying to identify those moments when things start to get a little too crazy,
When it's getting frothy.
Yeah, frothy, exactly. So it's kind of like learning from the mistakes of others so we don't have to repeat them ourselves.
Exactly. Think about all those bubbles we talked about earlier.
Right.
The dot-com bubble, the housing bubble. I mean, they seem so obvious in hindsight, right?
Yeah,
But at the time, millions of people, they got swept up in that frenzy,
it's true.
So by studying those events, those past bubbles, we can learn to spot those warning signs and hopefully avoid making the same mistakes.
Makes sense. So critical thinking helps us evaluate the individual investments.
Right.
And historical perspective gives us that bigger picture, that understanding of how markets move in these cycles.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so what's next on the list? Strategy number 3.
All right. So number 3 is independent analysis.
Independent analysis, okay.
This is all about, taking all the information you've gathered, all that research you've done, and then forming your own conclusions.
Okay.
Don't just follow someone else's playbook.
Right.
Because, everyone has different financial goals. They have different risk tolerances. Their timelines are different.
Right.
So just because an investment is right for one person doesn't mean it's going to be right for you.
It's about finding what works for you.
That's it. You need to figure out what makes sense for your own situation.
Don't just blindly follow someone else's advice.
Even if they sound like they know what they're talking about.
Exactly. Even if they seem like an expert.
Right. Do your own research.
Okay, that leads us perfectly into strategy number 4. Emotional discipline.
Ah, yes. This one's a tough one.
This feels like maybe the hardest one.
It is because markets, they're driven by fear and greed, right?
Oh, yeah.
And those emotions, they're contagious.
They really are.
Like when everyone's panicking, it's so easy to panic right along with them.
Oh, tell me about it.
And then on the flip side, when everyone's euphoric, it's so easy to get caught up in all that excitement,
Right.
and make impulsive decisions.
It's like that fear of missing out all over again.
Exactly. But that's why this emotional discipline, it's so crucial. You need to be able to detach from all that noise, all the hype, and just stick to your plan.
Right. Stick to the plan.
Don't let those emotions, the fear or the greed, dictate your actions.
Easier said than done, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so we've covered critical thinking, we've got historical perspective, independent analysis, emotional discipline.
We're on a roll.
We are. What's the 5th and final strategy?
This one might be the most challenging of all,
Oh.
but it can also be the most rewarding.
I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
It's developing a contrarian mindset.
Contrarian. Wait, doesn't that mean just being stubborn?
Well, not necessarily.
Like disagreeing with everyone just for the sake of it?
No, it's not about that.
Okay.
It's about having the courage to go against the crowd, to take a different path when your analysis, your research suggests that it's the right move.
So it's about thinking for yourself, even if it means challenging the conventional wisdom.
Exactly. Think of Warren Buffett.
Okay.
He's famous for saying, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic.
That right there, that's the essence of contrarian thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It's about looking beyond the hype, seeing through the noise and making decisions based on your own judgment, even when it feels uncomfortable.
But isn't that kind of risky?
Well, there's always risk in investing, no matter what.
True.
But by using these other strategies we've been talking about, the critical thinking, the historical perspective, all of that,
Right.
you can really reduce that risk and make decisions that are, well, much more informed.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how these 5 strategies, they all kind of work together.
Yeah, they build on each other.
But how can our listener, how can they actually start using these in their own, financial life? It still feels a little theoretical to me.
That's a great question. And it's something we'll definitely dive into next.
Like all these strategies, they're like tools,
Tools, yeah.
We can use them to build like a stronger, more resilient mindset when it comes to investing. Like we've got that critical thinking that helps us analyze things. And then historical perspective that gives us like a roadmap, a guide, independent analysis that's all about, personalizing our approach.
Yeah, making it your own.
And then emotional discipline to keep us grounded, keep us from making those rash decisions.
Keeps you level-headed.
And then there's that contrarian mindset.
Oh, yes.
That helps us see those opportunities that maybe other people are missing.
To think outside the box.
Exactly. So it's like we've got this whole toolkit now.
We're well equipped.
Yeah, but the question is, how do we actually use these tools?
Right.
Like, how do we make them work for us?
Well, I think the best part is you can actually start applying these tools right now.
Today, okay.
Yeah, think about your own investing journey, Have you ever made a decision based on like pure emotion?
Oh, yeah.
Or followed a hot tip without really understanding what you were getting into?
Oh, man, have I ever. I remember back when crypto was the big thing.
Oh, yeah, crypto.
Everyone was talking about it, and I felt like I had to get in on the action.
FOMO.
Yeah, the FOMO was real. I ended up buying into a couple different coins without really doing my research.
Oh, no.
And, well, let's just say it didn't end well.
Yeah, those crypto stories, they could be rough.
They can, but it's like, that's a perfect example of how powerful these instincts are.
They really are.
Like, we might think we're being rational, but then, bam, emotion takes over.
It sneaks up on you.
But now that we're aware of it, we can approach things differently, right?
Exactly.
Next time I'm looking at an investment, I'm gonna take my time, I'm gonna really understand it, look at its history, and think about, how it fits into my overall goals.
That's the way to do it.
So the big takeaway here is booms and busts. They're not just about economic cycles or whatever. They're about human psychology.
We're all human.
And once we understand our own tendencies, especially this hardwired instinct to follow the crowd, that's when we can start making better choices, more independent, more informed choices.
You hit the nail on the head.
It's like we've been given this map, right?
A map, yeah.
To help us navigate this world of investing, which can be confusing and unpredictable.
For sure.
And we just need to learn how to read the map, how to use it to our advantage.
And maybe even make our own trails.
Exactly. So I want to encourage everyone listening, think about these 5 strategies. Which ones really resonated with you?
Yeah, which ones stuck out?
What are some things you can do, like starting today, to incorporate them into your own life?
Start putting them into practice.
Because becoming a savvy, independent thinker, it's a journey, right?
It's not a destination. It's a process.
It's not about reaching some endpoint. It's about constantly learning, growing, evolving the way we approach the world.
Always be learning. Always be growing.
Exactly. Well, hey, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a fascinating conversation.
It has been, yeah.
And we'll be back soon with more deep dives into the world of, human behavior, finance, and everything in between.
Everything.
Until then, stay curious and keep learning.